Sorry about that. Well, hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Iowa Cargo and Airports Committee webinar, Mother's Day Flowers and How Air Cargo Makes It Possible. I hope that everybody on this call that does celebrate Mother's Day did have a wonderful Mother's Day. It was a beautiful Sunday. So before we get started, I just want to thank our 2023 Iowa allies for their continued support of Iowa. Their support ensures continuity of our mission in supporting women in aviation and aerospace, and their contributions funding network platforms, including regional receptions and connects, and help create future aviation and aerospace leaders through Iowa scholarships and internships. And since I had a little technical difficulty, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sia Schatz. I am with 80K Executive Search, and I'm also a member of the Iowa Cargo Committee. And I'd like to now introduce our wonderful speakers. And also Gina Zuckerman, who is the co-chair of the Iowa Cargo Committee, will be helping us field some questions and monitoring the chat where you can ask questions of our speakers today. So welcome. We have Maria Chavez from Atlas Air.
Good afternoon.
And also Megan Atkins-Tobin from Louisville Airport. So I'd like to introduce Maria Chavez. Maria is the Director of Sales and Marketing at Atlas Air. Maria was born in Havana, Cuba, 1957. Sorry, we didn't mean to divulge your birthday there. Sorry. But it was interesting because Maria went to school in New Jersey, moved to Miami in 1985, where she started working in Eastern Airlines in passenger service. Maria then moved to Ledeco Airlines in 1991 as an account executive. She got familiar with the perishable market and learned all about fruit and fish in Chile. She then began at Polar Air Cargo in 1997 and started traveling to Chile, getting very familiar with the Chilean customer. In 2008, Atlas took over Polar South America. And as director of South America, Maria developed other countries. She opened up Lima, Colombia, and Ecuador. Atlas grew rapidly to 23 frequencies per week with 747-800s all over South America. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you so much.
And we also have Megan Atkins-Tobin, who is with the Louisville Airport. Megan is a Director of Operations and Business Development for both Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, SDF, and Bowman Field, LOU. In her current role, Megan is leading a $400 million terminal renovation effort, overseeing the development of the airport's first full-time airport operations department, and managing the daily operations of both airports with respect to terminal and airfield safety and security. With over 14 years of experience in airport operations and having worked on multiple different airport transformation projects, Megan's contributions to the industry have earned her the title of 40 Under 40 by Louisville Business First in 2021 and Most Admired Woman in the Young Executive category by Today's Women's Magazine 2022. Megan is passionate about the world through people and planes. She's a firm advocate for women in aviation and spends her free time giving back to her community by coaching students from her high school. Megan is also a private pilot certificate holder and an accredited airport executive with AAA. Thank you, Megan, for joining us. So it's interesting. Now we've got two perspectives. We've got the airline perspective and we've got the airport perspective. And we know that on Mother's Day especially, there is the opportunity to get these flowers to us, and we really want to understand how that happens. Sorry, I'm just getting an interesting message here. Okay, sorry. All right, we're all good. So again, Maria is charged with working with the airline that's charged with the logistics of shipping our flowers, a major passenger cargo airport perspective from Megan that handles the departure and arrivals along with the distribution among airport tenants that help in getting those flowers and other sundries to our door. Maria, can you share an overview of the process that Atlas performs in the pickup, transportation, and delivery of flowers, which is a highly perishable commodity?
Yes, I will, gladly. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you. Atlas Air is responsible for it's the flower market. It's a year-round market, except that you have seasons. You have Mother's Day, you have Valentine's, you have a teacher, the first day of school day, you have Christmas, you have Easter. But on these particular holidays, we move on a daily basis 100 ton a day from Colombia to Miami and from Ecuador to Miami. So it's quite a bit. When the holiday comes, we do 2 of these flights daily, originating from Ecuador and Colombia to Miami. So it's a very, very big operation. We have 747, so it's 100 ton each time. And when it gets to Miami, 90% of all the cargo, of all the flowers that enter the United States enter through Miami. So it's a huge market. And we have a handling company here, which is WFS, which does a great job for us with the coolers. And it's an agricultural process. And so we have to clear this cargo, offload 747s, which is it takes about 4 to 6 hours for this cargo to be offloaded and get ready for something called PQ, which is the clearance for the cargo to be cleared and picked up. So it's quite an ordeal.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you, Maria, for sharing that. And Megan, from an airport perspective, you're at Louisville with your largest tenant airline, UPS. What is your role from the airport perspective in ensuring those flights operate smoothly?
Yeah, so one interesting fact about Louisville, which a lot of people don't know because we're home to UPS Worldport, we're actually the 3rd busiest cargo airport in North America. And another interesting fact for anybody that's interested in aviation, we only have 2 parallel runways. So carrying that much cargo, making us that 3rd busiest airport and only on 2 runways, makes our airfield pretty stressed and stretched. So my job and the job of my airport operations department is to keep a constant eye on those airfield facilities, on our runways and our taxiways. And I tell people every single UPS airplane that's coming in and out of Louisville is fully loaded. It's got packages coming in or packages going out. So you can imagine our airfield takes quite a beating with all of those arrivals and departures. So we're always monitoring our airfield, and we have it commonly happen for us that we have to make quick repairs to our pavement. We have one runway that is quite a bit longer than the other. So that's always the preference for UPS, especially when it's going some of those further distances, like all the way out to Dubai, maybe not for the flowers, but that's as far as one aircraft would leave Louisville and then go to its furthest point. So they need that long runway, but we only have one of them. And so it makes doing repairs and keeping up with the airfield difficult so that we don't adversely impact their operation. So it's a very strategic balance with them and with us, and we do it weekly. We do weekly maintenance on our airfield, either from repairing the pavement to repairing the lights, to repairing the signs, to bringing up the rubber, removing all the rubber. It's a constant flow, and if we get behind on any one of those closures, we close the airfield so that it's not at a bad time for UPS. Then things kind of snowball on each other. We get to a point where we have too many lights out, and then UPS can't operate, or they can't, fly their ILS approaches. And so it's something that has to be constantly stayed in front of. But then the extra balance of we have a tenant that doesn't stop. And especially on those holidays, we get up to over 500 flights a day during our peak season of Christmas time, leading up between Thanksgiving and Christmas time. So holidays, they are just like Maria was saying with Atlas, everybody scales up. So that means that we can't be behind either. And it may mean us running out and patching a little piece of pavement just so we can keep things running. And then we wait and we babysit and we watch, and then once we get a little bit more time, we can go out there and make a more thoughtful repair, or sometimes even take a whole slab of pavement out that night. So you never know what the day is going to bring, but the name of the game is always keeping the aircraft moving.
Thanks. And it looks like we might have some technical difficulties with Sia, so I'm hopping in, but I still have all of our questions. So no, that's very interesting. My next question is for Maria. Where did you have to physically relocate to be closer to your stakeholder partners as part of the distribution chain?
I was very lucky that I lived in Miami, And when I started working here in Miami, we didn't have any of these locations open. And then little by little, I started opening up. I mean, I've been with them 27 years. So we opened up Peru and then brought the asparagus back. We brought the Colombia to bring the flowers back. We opened up Quito to bring the flowers back. And everything was out of Miami. I was very lucky that I didn't have to move.
That's great. And Megan, for you, you're in the midst of just finished a really exciting annual event, the Kentucky Derby in Louisville. Kind of speak to the operational impact and staffing needs during that time. Just, what kind of planning and thought goes into some of the preparations for an event like the Derby. I know we were talking about Mother's Day, but we realized that we were in the midst of a really busy time for Louisville as well.
Yeah, literally our busiest time of year is so the busiest time, and I know we're talking a lot of airfield logistics and aircraft logistics, but the passenger piece of it for me is huge part of my role in keeping passengers safe and secure and in our terminal facility as well. So we have so many more flights the day after Derby. Our actual busiest day at Louisville is the day after Derby. We call that Departure Sunday, and everybody wants to leave the Sunday after Derby. So on a typical day from a passenger perspective in Louisville, we usually have somewhere around 8,000 passengers. And on Departure Sunday this year, we had 18,000 passengers in one day. So it was the first time I think I ever actually saw our facility and went, I don't think we can fit another person into this facility. And that's a difficult place for me to be too. And it's something to balance. All of us aviators have to balance capacity. We always want to grow. We want to keep growing, we want to keep growing. But we also have to be realistic sometimes and know that there are constraints. I was talking about my airfield constraints. I'm surrounded by highways. I'm surrounded by a railroad. I'm never going to be able to build another runway at Louisville. And the only thing I can really do in terms of runway length is maybe add some EMAS on some other of our runway ends. But for us, it's constricted and it'll stay that way. And hopefully that doesn't adversely impact what we do in the future. But same thing happens when we have special events. We really see that test of what can we handle at our airports and our airfields. And so we always love to handle more. So airports are always under construction. We're always trying to add to. We're always trying to create more space where we didn't have it before. But specifically, the Derby this year was the busiest Departure Sunday and Derby time that we have ever had in the history of the airport by about a 24% increase on our last busiest day. So it is substantial. And then on the airfield, we have a ton of pavement, I'm very lucky to say, from a previous airfield configuration. We used to be crossing runways. And I always say I'd love to go back to the people that were around at my airport whenever they said, we'd like to have UPS Worldport locate here, because they completely turned our airport and our airfield layout on its head and made us parallel runways. And so the what's remaining from all of that is some taxiway pavement. We never like to get rid of pavement at airports if we don't have to. So we use that to park airplanes, lots of airplanes. I think at post time, we had maybe 200-300 airplanes on the ground, but from a private aircraft perspective, our FBO handled over 700 airplanes in one day. A lot of those are those fractionals that are coming in and out and dropping passengers and going. So my job and the job of my staff is to find places to park all these airplanes, find places to let them stay maybe for a time or just to drop and go. How do we get fuel trucks out to them? How do we get ground transportation out to them? And then the added piece this year of more passenger traffic than we've ever had before made me very constrained on airplane movements coming back into the terminal ramp. So we're actually going to have to rethink what kind of payment we give over to private aviation next year, as we're not adversely impacting movement to and from our terminal ramp. So it's always a new challenge. And as those holidays get busier and busier and people are coming back to traveling and enjoying traveling, then new challenges arise.
I guess in that sense, it's probably twofold as the cargo industry, really boomed over the last couple of years in the response to COVID. And then you also have the return to travel. So at a place like Louisville, you really have kind of a perfect storm of a lot of demands and constraints at your airport. I mean, I guess good challenges to have, but ways that you have to be innovative probably to adapt to.
Right, exactly.
Just kind of taking a step back a little bit from your different day-to-day operations. Maria, how did you choose this career path? Was this something, were you interested in aviation? Were you interested in the flower industry, in sales? How did you get to where you are today?
I love the airline, always loved the airline industry. And I started with passenger at Eastern Airlines. I started front of counter at Eastern Airlines. And then an opportunity opened up for cargo at Eastern. And I started at Eastern Cargo, started at Eastern Cargo Sales. Well, when cargo sales, when Eastern went down, I had the opportunity to work for the Deco Airlines, which is a Chilean cargo and passenger airline. And that's when it took off, because I once I started cargo, I really liked it. And I didn't go back to passenger. Cargo was my thing. And I really did enjoy it. And I still do enjoy it very much.
I think it's a unique area of the aviation industry that is not as understood, but is growing in understanding and importance. I think as we're trying to spotlight here, the Mother's Day flower delivery is just one of the very, very many things that cargo is able to deliver. But it looks like we have Sia back. So I'm going to let her take back over, and I'll just be in the background in case we have other issues. But I don't know, Sia finished with how it chose the career path from Maria's perspective. So maybe we can get to Megan on that question too.
Again, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened, but you know what? These things may happen. So, but thank you, Gina, for filling in while I was trying to figure out why my Zoom connection wasn't working. But thank you, Maria. And Megan, I've known you for actually a short while, but I did meet you on your home turf in Louisville. And we're excited to hear a little bit more about how you chose your career path.
So I always knew I wanted to be in aviation. It was where I always found a great joy growing up, because my dad was a private pilot, instrument rated pilot, and he just would fly around for fun. We'd rent small airplanes out of Bowman Field, and that was the thing I loved to do on the weekends, was fly to a small airport somewhere in Kentucky or Indiana and go have dinner and then fly home. And so I always knew I had so much fun doing that as a kid, and it brought me a lot of joy. So aviation was the way. I didn't know if I wanted to be a pilot. I didn't know if I wanted to be an air traffic controller. All of those things were opportunities and things I sought out, and I started down the path of flying, and I loved it. I love being in the cockpit, but I also love people and meeting new people and interactions with people, and I love to talk. So I felt like maybe being in an airplane cockpit for hours on end with the same person may not be the best use of the things that I do a lot of. So I went to Eastern Kentucky University in Kentucky, and it is the only aviation program in our state. And that's where I got an aviation management degree. And it was a little bit of everything. I got exposure to just a little bit of everything in aviation, but it was at a challenging time in our industry. It was just really coming out of the 2008 recession, and jobs in aviation were not what they are today. Today, I feel like I don't have as many applicants. I need more people. I really need to find the people, where I felt like back then finding a job was difficult in aviation. And so I took the first opportunity I found, which was working at an info desk at Bluegrass Airport in Lexington. And while I was there, I tried to talk to the airport executives that were there and find out their career paths and how they made it to their roles. And that's how I got exposed to airport management and airport operations specifically. And found that a lot of your current airport leaders, a lot of them are coming from airport operations, because we're really the only group within the airport management structure that's required to know a little bit about everything. You've got the typical running of a business, you've got your accountants, you've got your human resources, and those people, could maybe move across industries, but the subject matter experts of aviation in the airports a lot of times exist mostly in your ops departments. So started there and just have worked my way up ever since. Had to move a couple times, and now I'm fortunate that Louisville is actually my hometown, and it's a very, very small airport industry, and I got to work for an airport director I'd worked for previously, and he brought me back home. So hopefully here to stay for a little while.
Oh, that's a wonderful story, and it's a great way to describe what you do, and the fact that aviation is a very small world. Absolutely. And so I was very big on promoting mentors. Obviously, mentors help. They help in your career path. Maria, did you have a mentor throughout your career or in the beginning of your career?
I did. He was in Polar Air Cargo. He was a gentleman by the name of Gary Runyon. And he, I haven't heard from him in a very, very long time, but he was older and he taught me not so much sales, because I think sales you're just kind of born with, but he did teach me procedure. He taught me, what to do, how to start, how to do things on a monthly basis so you don't fall behind, and how to follow certain rules of how to follow. And he was very patient with me and taught me the ropes, if you will. And I really appreciate him for that.
Absolutely. Megan, we talked a little bit about, I know that you have a mentor, somebody that I know as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I'm very fortunate that a lot of the male leaders in my role, it's a very male dominated industry. So a lot of my male leaders have been wonderful, have been extremely uplifting. But having a female trailblazer in my corner has always been an important thing for me too. And just so happened, one of the airport directors I worked for, his wife, who is a coworker of Sia's, I asked her, if she would kind of support me in a mentorship role. And it was at a time, a pivotal time in my life where I was having to make a decision about moving, and being born and raised in Kentucky and going to college there, and having my time in Lexington, and then this other opportunity comes up, but it means moving to South Carolina. It means a new state, away from my family. And I had a small child at the time and an airline pilot husband. So all those things seemed very, very, very daunting when thinking about moving and not having all of those resources at my disposal in a job in aviation and airports where it doesn't sleep. There are no holidays for us. Things happen in the middle of the night. I get called in, there's snow, and she had a lot of time with me and really talked me through what her experience had been raising small children for a time by herself, not being near family to assist her, and how she just really made her village wherever she was, and she made it happen. And that's exactly what I did when I was in South Carolina. I made my village as soon as I moved there, and it was, I would say, one of the best experiences. I learned the most about myself in that time. I learned how strong I was. I learned that anything is possible. We can figure out anything. Especially women are extremely resourceful, so we can figure anything out. And she opened my eyes to that. And then, fortunately, it was that opportunity, oddly enough, to leave and go to South Carolina to work for that airport director. That is the same airport director that ended up coming to work at my hometown airport and brought me back home. So my path to coming home was always to move. It was what I was supposed to do, and she helped me see that. So always forever grateful to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about how aviation is a very small world. We're all separated by just a little bit, and everybody usually has a connection. So as I mentioned, IAWA is big on supporting mentors, and you have each had an opportunity to have a mentor. What are you doing, and what can others do to help serve as mentors, or advocates for women in aviation? Maria?
Well, I would hope that my employees come to me whenever they need anything, and I think they do. I think we get along very well. Most people that do work for me have been working for me for over 10 years. So I believe that if they need anything from me, I feel that I could mentor them, that I could actually give them any kind of advice that they need. And anytime that I could do that. Right now, I just hired someone she's only about 30 years old. And even though she has experience, I think that she can learn a lot more. And I believe that they come to me when they need me. So I'm open for that. And I enjoy teaching as well.
Nice. And Megan?
Well, I actually attended an all-female high school, and loved it. It was another opportunity for me to step out of my comfort zone, was going from my grade school and picking a high school that no one else in my grade school was going to go to. But it really, this place spoke to me. It felt like home from the very beginning, and I just felt very empowered there. And that's why I went there. And so I've stayed incredibly involved there since I graduated. I was honored to be their commencement speaker 2 years ago, and that was really neat. And they are the first all-female STEM certified high school in the US. And so now they're building a STEM lab, and they have a very, very big focus on aviation. And so that just warms my heart, because that wasn't there, you know, when I was there. I was just empowered as a woman, but now to actually have a focus of women in aviation is really, really exciting for me. So I'm on their strategic planning committee for that new building that they're building. I love giving tours of our airfield. Love it. I think I probably give our air traffic controllers a little bit of a heart attack every time I'm out there, because I let kids go sit right on the surface painted hold position signs and watch airplanes take off, and we'll just sit there. I mean, these are heavy, you know, 747s that are taking off, and it's just, I still get excited to go do something like that. So I can imagine someone for the first time going out and watching, you know, a UPS push in the middle of the day and just seeing, you know, airplane after airplane. Like, that's got to get anybody excited. So I try and use that to my benefit. I use the airport and the airfield as our playground, and anybody that ever wants to come see it, especially with that focus on my high school, and then also a flight club that we have out at our general aviation airport. That creates really neat opportunity to expose those students who are out there just, you know, hanging out at a GA airport, what that GA airport does for us and how it supports us at the big airport, and they can see our operation there too.
Great. Thanks, Megan. And thank you, Maria, for those perspectives. So in the airline industry, there's like 4% of crew are women, as what we know. And among the ground employees, about a quarter are women. And in the airport sector, we're doing much better with female leadership. And Megan, you're a proven example. In your view, how does gender play a role in our professional world today? And do you feel that being a woman made a notable impact on your path in this industry, both in the past and currently? And how do you see it in the future? Maria, how about we start with you?
It is a male industry, or at least it used to be when I started. You see a lot more ladies now, especially in sales. Of course, the women that work traffic, but it's harder to see sales women, and at least in Miami and cargo sales. You do have a few, but you don't have as many. So I guess when I was younger, I guess I thought I was at a disadvantage because it was mostly men. But now, as time goes by, you realize that no, we have no disadvantage at all. If you treat people well and you're educated, I feel that you do well. You do very well in sales. Sales is high risk, high reward. You know how that is. And just treat people well and you do well, no matter if you're a woman or a man.
Megan?
Yeah, I would definitely echo exactly what Maria said. And when we're talking about mentors, you know, I can't stress enough that I have been very, very, very fortunate to have had really, really, really good supportive male leaders, and that recognize the benefit that a woman brings to any situation, work related, personal related. There's so many times where I'm in a meeting and I'm the only woman in a meeting. And I know I'm a talker, so that's probably why I'm also doing the majority of the talking, but also when there's a call to make a decision, when someone needs to take ownership of something, I feel like, you know, we just have the DNA to do it. And that's very much appreciated in my experience. It's very much appreciated that there's someone that's willing to take action, that's willing to be held accountable for those actions. That's for me, if we're just sitting still, not doing anything, I'd rather be trying something and making wrong decisions, and that's leading me closer to the right decision, than just to be standing around, you know, waiting for somebody else to try something. You know, we don't really have that fear of failure. And that is very valued. I feel like that's been very valued in my career and in my position. And as such, I've been elevated by those people that see the benefit that I bring to those situations.
Okay, so if you had to start over from scratch, knowing what both of you know now, what would you do differently? And Maria, I know you had indicated that you probably wouldn't do anything different, but maybe you can elaborate on that.
Well, I think that now that I think about it, I think that if I had an opportunity to start over again, I would probably like to get a little bit more experience in operations instead of being put right into sales. I think that if I did operations for even a year, that I would learn everything from the ground up. And then when I got to sales, I would probably do even better in sales, because knowing operations, knowing how things work is very important, rather than learning sales and then trying to learn operations after. So I think that's the only thing that I would do different, but everything else, actually, I did okay.
Yeah, and Megan, we all know in the airport industry, if you have experience working in different areas, it just makes you that much more well-rounded. So
Exactly.
maybe you can elaborate a little bit on your answer to that question. What would you
Yeah.
do differently?
I think I love where I've ended up, and I feel very, very fortunate to be where I am. And I would like to continue my path to hopefully be an airport director one day, in the right city and in the right setting. And there's airports of all sizes and all ownerships, and there's such a wide variety of opportunity out there for someone aspiring to be an airport director. But I think one thing that I would do differently is kind of something I would give as advice to what would I tell my younger self, and that is when I first was brought in Lexington, and we were building an ops department, and that's what I did here in Louisville, and I've done in Columbia, is building a new staff, trying to initiate change. And this happens in any organization where you're trying to make a culture shift, or and that has to happen over time. There's different priorities, the world is a different place, and so those cultural shifts, those necessary cultural shifts happen in organizations. And so I was brought in I have been brought into a cultural shift. And my first perspective of that was that I was the new, fresh, perspective. And I don't feel like I gave a lot of time and consideration to those that had been a part of the previous culture and perspective, and what kind of experience and expertise that they bring, so that we don't, make the same mistakes, or we don't repeat history. I just don't feel like I feel like I lost some time and some footing in the beginning of my career, coming off as a little bit of a know-it-all, as somebody that was, because I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I was brought in for change, and I'm like, and we're going to change. But you can't really know where you're going until you know where you're coming from. And I didn't know where we were coming from. And I learned a lot and I've learned a lot at every airport I've been at about where the airport has been and why it was there, and then you are able to better get people on board too. It's all valuable perspective. Everybody's got an experience that's worth sharing. And the more you listen, says the talker, the more you listen, the better off you'll be.
Absolutely. So Gina, do we have any questions in the chat?
Yeah, we haven't received any specific questions yet, so I think we can just continue on with some of the ones that we talked about. And if anyone does have questions, now is the time to ask. So we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, sounds good. So, we always talk about work-life balance, and both of you have very demanding jobs. How did you juggle your work obligations with your work and your family life? Maria?
I was very fortunate because my kids were little when I started traveling. And so I had my family, my parents, of course, that helped me to take care, and my husband that, because I used to be out for a whole week and I would cover 3 countries in 1 week. And so I had to have my family had to take care of my kids. I had daycare, and then after that, mom and dad would pick them up, and otherwise my husband would pick them up. And I never took the time to spend a weekend and know the country and all that. As soon as I was finished, I would leave to make sure that I was home and be with the kids, because the kids were very young. But I was very fortunate. I was blessed to have family to help me.
Yeah, and that's the village concept, certainly having an extended family to help, but also it is the village. It's very hard to do things by ourselves, but the nice thing is there is a village out there.
Yeah.
And Megan, how did you find that you balanced your work life?
I would say that I am still trying to figure it out. It's always a constant juggle. Definitely family support is huge, but just like you said, if you don't live somewhere where you have family, we're very resourceful people. We figure out where we can build that village. But also something that I've done having small kids is I like to go, I like to be on the go, and I've passed that on to my kids. So and having a spouse in aviation too, we're not big schedule type people. We don't kind of create this world of, well, you get a nap at this time and you eat at this time. And, it's kind of anything goes in a day, and that makes them very adaptable. So I take them with me. So whenever I can, I take them with me, and having the family, my parents as help. I got to speak at a conference in Amsterdam this year. And so I took the parents and took the kids to Amsterdam. And last year I got to speak in Paris, took the kids, took everybody to Paris. So I feel like I'm trying to make it so that they also get benefit from me being in a job and a career where you get to see and do a lot, and just try and take them with me.
Nice, nice. And this industry that we're in, it's a global industry. And, Maria, you've had to travel, you've had to be in different locations while your family is in another location. And Megan, we all know in the airport industry, you're geographically tied. If you want to move up or go to a different airport, you have to go to a different location. And that means moving your family and possibly even removing yourself from that support structure. So that's definitely challenging. How do you see the aviation industry changing in the next few years? What are the biggest challenges facing the industry? We know that aviation is always going through changes. We go through that change, that cycle up and down. But what do you think where we are right now in 2023, hopefully post-COVID? What do you think are the next challenges?
Well, I believe
Maria?
e-cargo is going to be huge when it happens. It hasn't happened for me anyway. In South America, it hasn't happened. It should have happened already, which is electronic airway bills. That has not happened yet for us in South America. So I think that is going to happen very, very soon. And when that happens, things are going to be a lot easier for operations and for all of us. That's one of them. The second thing, I believe, security-wise, we have to be mindful of all the security issues that there are to make sure we have a great team, a great security team in Miami and in every station that we have. And I think that those are the things that we have to basically be concerned with.
And Megan, what do you see the biggest challenges being?
I feel like, well, I'm always, worried about the cyclicalness of aviation as it is always trending with our economy. So, that's always in the back of our heads. And I think COVID, at least in the airport world, taught us that we always have to be planning and budgeting that next year, when that happens, is the year, and that we're all in a good position and we're ready for it. Again, I'm learning from a very, very savvy airport director how to budget and how to plan, so that we were very fortunate during COVID that we were able to keep going with construction. We kind of took time and use it to our advantage, not having passengers around, not having a ton of impact on people. We did a lot of construction to our terminal facilities, and we had the money to be able to keep going because he's a very, very savvy financial planner, and he was always planning for a downfall. And so just having to keep that in the forefront of your planning, I think, is important. And from an infrastructure standpoint, I'm really curious to see how airports and the infrastructure system is having to adapt to electric vertical takeoff, and the opportunities that are coming about with some of those unmanned aircraft. And again, I've been in a couple of different talks with some of those vendors that are making those electronic vertical takeoff vehicles, and UPS is as a prototype for one that they have been playing with. It fits a palette of stuff, and so that's really fascinating. I think about an entire you know, from the airport ground all the way to air traffic, you know, all like the entire system. I feel like all of a sudden now it's like drones, but on a much larger, more impactful scale. And I still feel like we're trying to keep up with drones. So it's I think that'll be very, very interesting what we're required to do from an infrastructure standpoint.
So does that mean we'll get our flower delivery right to our front door?
I think it'll just drop, right?
Just drop it right to the front step.
Yep.
Yeah, we
One-
have time for, it looks like, about one more question for each panelist.
Okay. I just, in closing, basically, I would just like to ask both of you, which advice would you like to share with the audience today? Or is there anything that you'd like to share? Certainly advice or a takeaway on this particular topic.
In my case, I would just say, take advantage of your youth and work very hard, because as you get older, like I am, then you might want to slow down a little bit afterwards. So work very, very hard to get to where you want to get now that when you're young, because that's when you can do it. Travel, get everything done, get everything that you have to do it. The younger that you are, the better. That's
Sounds
it.
good. And Megan?
I think my advice has always been, say yes to as many opportunities as you can, and experiences. No experience is bad experience. Like you were saying earlier, Sia, it's good, especially us in the airport world, that we, you know, have done a little bit of everything. It makes us this, you know, well-rounded professional to hopefully step into a leadership role at an airport. But some of the least glamorous things I've been asked to do. I was asked at my first airport to rebadge all the security badges. I had to reissue every person a security badge at the airport because we had lost track of more than we should have. And that had nothing to do with airplanes, really. You know, it had everything to do with fingerprint background checks and criminal histories and threat assessments, and nothing to do with it, but I did it, and through that I met so many amazing people that were based at that airport. And then when I did get a chance to really get into the operations, the airplane side of things, I was their first call because they knew me from that previous experience. They had to deal with me doing those things. So everything I've ever said yes to, I feel like has amounted in a good experience and has made me a more well-rounded professional. So even if you're skeptical, I would say just give it a try.
Yep, that's great advice. I mean, everything you do, every job you've had, certainly from the first jobs where we had to work with fast food or anything like that, that's always good for customer service, and everything plays on itself. And you can look back and say, wow, what a great foundation I had.
Exactly.
Thank you. So Gina, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today, for Maria and Megan for giving us some words of wisdom. And I just put my email in the chat if you have any interest in joining our committee and you're already not a member or a member of IAWA. You know where to find us. And we're always welcome to ideas that we can do interesting webinar topics and programming. So thanks everyone for your participation today and for your time.
And thank you very much to Maria and Megan for coming today and talking to us about getting our flowers to our door and sharing your experiences in your career. You're both very inspiring, and it was my pleasure. And I apologize for the technical glitch, but I was happy to be back. And thanks, Gina, for covering.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye.